So Lisa, share with us your journey.
Well, that's a loaded question. Long journey. We could be here for like hours. It all started when I was a little girl. I think that's where, on a serious note, that's where all of our childhood wounds start. And that's when we start putting on masks to be accepted, to be loved. The whole goal in life, I think, for all of us is we want to be loved and we want to love someone. At the end of the day, I worked with a lot of people who were passing in hospice, and they all said they just want the people that they truly love near them. And what did they do for them? And those moments are the ones that they're retelling. Oh, I remember that time when so-and-so did this and that. It's not about anything else. It's all about love. So that's where I started with Soul Blazing. It really stems from that. And as I was growing up, there was, I grew up under a Baghdad roof in San Diego. So it was a very liberal place, but under my roof, it was not. And we weren't really allowed to go out and see friends so much, or go camping, or have sleepovers, or have people sleep at our house. We could just go to weddings, funerals, baptisms, family events, and once in a while, an hour or two after school, but be home before the streetlights come on. And at funerals, there was this woman that would pass out tissue boxes, and then she would start berating in Arabic these people, and then they would start crying. And I was just fascinated with that, going, what is going on? And then I asked my dad, what he's doing. Oh, that person died. And they're saying, well, why did you do that? He's your brother, and he asked you for money for a loan for his business, and you said no. Oh, that's your father. Why didn't you go visit him more? He was dying and you were too busy doing this and that, and all this stuff. And they're like, right? And I think as a child, you don't get it, but all these little things that happen to you get buried inside your subconscious. Then that starts creating your story. And then that's one of my stories. And then when I was 16, I was baking a cake a few houses down for a friend whose birthday it was the next day. But I happened to come home when the streetlights were on at around 5:30. And my dad happened to be home at that time, because before that he worked 8 a.m. till 11 p.m. And now he was starting to take a little more time off, taking an hour or two off during the day. And he's like, what is going on here? What kind of, because I'm one of 5 girls, teenagers. And to my mom, what kind of a household are you running? She's outside running around like that. And it's my school uniform, Catholic school uniform. I'm like, Dad, just baking cake. He went crazy and said, send her to an orphanage, call an orphanage. I'm like, what is an orphanage? To get me out of the house, because I was going to corrupt all the other sisters. And I was such a goody and almost straight A's and never doing anything wrong, daddy's little girl. So I was like, what? It was so confusing. So in your little brain at that time, again, you start creating neural pathways. I started thinking, who are all these dangerous people? Everyone's out to get you. You could just stay within your community. You have your husbands picked out. This is who we want you to marry. You don't venture out. So I started hitchhiking, sneaking out my window and getting in cars with like Hell's Angels types, going, my dad said, you were the bad guy. I'm supposed to be careful about you. Do you rape people? Do you kill people? Why do you drive such a terrible car? Why do you have piercings? Why do you have tattoos? Why are you broke? Why did you pick me up? All these questions. So I did that about a dozen times over like a month or two, and nobody hurt me. So I'm like, let me, take this in my own hands. And that started opening me up to being super curious of the world and what else is out there that I've been, kept hostage from. And I decided to move to Los Angeles, because then my maternal grandmother came to my house and said, when my mom was younger, the psychic told her that my mom was going to marry a foreigner. She's from Virginia, and she married an Iraqi guy from Baghdad, and that she was going to have 5 girls. Check. And one was going to be a star. And I'm like, I get to be the star. I didn't know what that meant, but all it meant to me was freedom. Oh, you get, because the star meant freedom, travel, all this stuff. And I'm like, I get to be it. So I'm like, okay, now what's a star? So I started, researching Lauren Bacall, Marilyn Monroe, all these great people, Betty Davis, Liz Taylor. Oh, this is what a star is. And looking at their lives going, okay, I've got to start creating my life mirroring what theirs is. So then I decided to move to LA at 22 to become an actress, disowned all this, left a note. And I happened to meet one of Madonna's band mates. He was an arranger and keyboardist. And he said, come here, come watch Madonna here, come watch Madonna there. And I'm like, I can't travel. This was right before I moved. And then finally, I ended up going to New York and meeting Madonna and going to her 5-day concert there. And I said, how did you become Madonna? How did you escape from a patriarchal father? Because hers is from Italy and she had a big family. And how did you create you? And she said, what you should do is travel and travel alone because you don't know yourself, which again is your imposters, because all you know is you're being created and molded by the beliefs of your parents, your relatives, and the DNA of generations past. So that's what your subconscious is made of. And that's where I'm scared to do this, or I'm shy about that. All that's not really you. It's all the building blocks that have become you. So I went, oh, travel alone? I haven't even traveled. So anyway, off I went to Europe and did a 10-city tour, through about 8 different countries, and had a blast. And everything happened to me. I got ripped off here, got ripped off there, was jumped there. I had to call my dad. Someone stole everything. Send me money, send me this. And he's like, what are you doing in Europe? I'm like, sorry, yell at me when I get home. I just need help now. And came back. But then I was addicted. And I said, okay, travel's got to become a part of my life. And I started building myself. But then I started acting, and almost every role I got as an ingenue, 3 seconds of nudity, 8 seconds of nudity, wet t-shirt, you have this love scene, you have this, you have that. Even I got Young and the Restless and I had to do a love scene under the covers. I'm like, I can't simulate sex, even if I'm dressed. My father, Uncle Najib, Uncle Habib, Uncle Azawi, I said, I can't. Because my dad said, 1 foot in my grave, if you ever do anything, you'll embarrass not only your sisters, but all your cousins. And a lot of them, my dad was the 14th child. A lot of them had 5 to 9 children. And from your ancestry that family is everything, and you ruin the whole name. So I'm like, oh, I can't be an actress. Everything I'm trying to do, I can. So who am I? What am I? So then I decided to go to Iraq and find my roots and talk to Saddam Hussein.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk to him?
Well, I was going through a time where it's hard to explain because it wasn't like a lot of people suffer. But for me, it was like, okay, my whole life, I thought I was going to be an actress. I had no plan B. What am I going to do now? I got invited to go to Tokyo to model and do commercials. So I went off and did that. So I made a nice chunk of change. And then I said, okay, now what? And then I fell in love with Christiane Amanpour, who's the war reporter. She's Persian. And I thought I would love her job. That would be interesting. And she's always nice and professional, and I thought it was an exciting job. I wanted something that was changing and shifting, that included travel. Let me fly to Bosnia, then Afghanistan, Iraq, and all these places and meet all incredible heroes and people, change makers. And so I thought, I can't go to school for that because I already went to school and I already, have my BA, and I didn't want to go through the journey that you're supposed to go through. So I thought, as I was watching the news, if you take the bus from Jordan to Iraq, it's an 18-hour bus ride, and Al-Qaeda was kidnapping Americans or ripping off Americans. And because there's no direct flights to Iraq. So I said, why don't I go to Jordan? And then I'm going to take that 18-hour bus ride and I'll get kidnapped. Then I could co-write a book with Al-Qaeda. Then I'll be a bestseller. Then I'm going to get on all the news shows. And then I could be Christiane Amanpour.
At a risk of your life.
And I realize now in retrospect, it was when I know a lot of people could relate to this now, when you're feeling helpless, or you're feeling, what's the point of living? And you just look at everything around you and everything's collapsing, and you don't really have money, you don't really have a future, you're not in love, you don't feel connected to anything. You don't take life as seriously. And I understand how there could be jihad, or people could blow themselves up for the sake of a cause because they don't value their life, and they're brought up to not care about themselves. They're brought up with so much torture and watching videos. This is what I learned from traveling there. They're trained watching horrific videos and have a gun in their hand at age 2, 3, 4. So they don't care about life, or they don't have a life. So I'm going, that's why. But I wasn't that extreme, of course, but I didn't value my life. I'm going, if this is my life day in, day out, day in, day out, and it's immature thinking, but that's where I was at the time. I thought, I don't even care if I live or not, because I can't live such a mundane life, just get up every day to just work for someone for minimum wage all day and then go home, rinse and repeat. I said, I just can't. So I decided to take this journey. And then when I was in Jordan, I saw this woman there and I said, what are you doing? Are you going to Jordan? She said, oh no, Iraq. I said, oh, where's your family? And she said, oh, I'm by myself. I go, you're going to Iraq by yourself? Are you crazy? And she's like, no. And I said, why are you going? She goes, oh, I want to kill myself. And she was around my age and she was an attorney. And I said, oh, I'm going there to get kidnapped. Why don't you join me? And I told her my plan. And she's like, okay, all right, let's join forces. So we joined forces. So on the bus, I had a Louis Vuitton bag. I had cubic zirconia. Anytime they come to do this, oh, my diamonds. Oops, my Louis Vuitton. Oh, here's the passport. They would say, thank you, Habibi. I'm like, no one's hurting me. No one's doing anything. So